Australians will soon be able to ban themselves from online betting sites as part of a new federal scheme tackling gambling addiction. A range of long-awaited new gambling industry standards will be rolled out over 18 months. Online sports betting is rising in popularity by 15% per year, becoming the fastest growing form of gambling in the country. The government has worked on the new standards with the country's largest online bookmakers, including Sportsbet and Ladbrokes, and says they will apply to about 2.5 million active online betting accounts. For more on this, I'm joined by the Social Services Minister, Paul Fletcher. Thanks for your time today. Can I begin by asking you about how this actually works? So you go into any given app, you press what, ban? I don't know if it says you ban yourself for a week or a month, and then across any app where you're registered, that will apply as well?
Well, what we're announcing today is the National Consumer Protection Framework for online gambling. 10 measures to better protect Australians against the risk of becoming addicted to online gambling. And it's a cooperative process between the Commonwealth and the states and territories. We're announcing today that we've got formal agreement between the Commonwealth and all the states and territories. So over the next 18 months, we'll roll out legislation and we'll implement the key elements of it. Now, 2 elements are already in place. The Commonwealth legislated earlier this year to ban loans or lines of credit being offered by online gambling services to their customers, and also banned a link from an online gambling service to payday lending. Now, in terms of your question about the National Self-Exclusion Register, the way that'll work is you'll be able to go to one site and then specify the period for which you wish to be excluded. That could be 3 months, it could be a lifetime. And that will then have effect across all of the online gambling services. There's about 130 of them in Australia at the moment. All of them will immediately have to give effect to that. So over the next 18 months, we'll get that the IT work done. We're already well advanced on it. It'll cost about between $1 and $3 million, and that'll be funded by a levy on the gambling services. And of course, we'll also put in place both the Commonwealth and the state and territory legislation, remembering that states and territories have primary responsibility for regulating gambling, but the Commonwealth has primary regulatory responsibility for online issues. So all of that will come together.
Sorry to just jump in there, Minister, but how does it work if someone does go to that and they go, I want to ban myself for a year, and then a week later they decide they want to change their mind? Would they be able to? What would be the process then?
No, very importantly, there'll be a significant cooling off period. So once you have once you've entered yourself in the National Self-Exclusion Register, there'll be some significant limits on you reversing that. Now, all of this is based upon extensive research, a lot of work with psychologists, with gambling counsellors and support services, with victims themselves, people who've fallen prey to online gambling addiction. For example, a gentleman I met a few weeks ago, I'll call him John, who was made redundant after 21 years with the same company, received a redundancy payment of $170,000. Understandably, he was feeling a bit depressed. He found himself gambling online, and within a few weeks, he'd blown the entire $170,000. So a whole series of these measures, part of this framework, of these 10 measures, will address that. So, for example, a requirement for regular and clear statements of account. John showed me the statements that he got from his online provider after he actively asked for them. Nowhere did they actually conveniently summarise the cumulative amount that he bet. So issues like that are really important. There'll also be a requirement that for every online gambling service, you must be able to specify up front a limit on the amount that you want to deposit, the amount of money you want to deposit that you're then gambling with. And if you want to reduce that, they have to respond immediately.
Yeah, and you see a few of them in place already. Just on that sort of, I guess, wagering summary you were talking about, is it only if someone requests it? Because, look, I imagine, and I've you know, had a bad day at the track myself, I must confess, and you think, oh, look, I don't really want to look at that. Would it pop up when you log into the app, you know, how much you've won or lost over the past week or day? Would that happen automatically? You've still got to request it as a punter.
Well, certainly the key principle is information being available to you easily, readily, proactively, rather than you only getting it if you consciously ask. And so there's still some detail to be worked out over the next, as we roll out these measures over the next 18 months. But the principle, very clear, that the information must be provided to you regularly and proactively. There'll also be training, a requirement.
That could mean that could mean, say, a notification or an email. I understand you're working on the detail, but something that is just sent out to you without you having to inquire. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, again, those are details to be worked through, but the principles are very clear in terms of easy availability of statements, regularly available, and giving you all the clear information, including the total amount that you've bet. One of the other requirements will be training for staff of online gambling services in responsible gambling, including awareness of the situations of customers. So, you know, at the moment, we hear stories about people being offered significant inducements when they're continuing to bet, being invited to enter exclusive clubs, inducements to open an account. So you might be given $200, you know, money that you don't have to pay for, you can gamble with, or an inducement to sign up a friend. There'll be limits, in fact, prohibitions on those specific kinds of inducements to sign up to an account. So all of these measures are designed to deal with the sort of behaviours that we see. When you're online, when you're gambling, it's easy to forget that it's real money. And what we want to do is make it simple for people to recognise they've got a problem, act on it quickly, help people exercise that willpower that can sometimes be hard to exercise, make it as efficient as possible. Also, for example, when you sign on to the self-exclusion register, you'll be directed towards counselling services, the National Gambling Hotline, helpline, I should say, 1800 858 858. So it's all about giving Australians the tools to help them guard against the risk of addiction to online gambling.
Just finally,
now, there's a million...
Sorry to jump in there, Minister. We're nearly out of time. I just wanted to ask quickly, though, about those inducements. So, banned totally from trying to get a friend to sign up, but there still will be some inducements allowed. For example, you know, the spring racing carnival's coming up. You'll get an email saying money back if your horse finishes second or third or something like that, or an account bonus. They'll be allowed in some way. You're still working through that?
Well, so there's a range of responses to that. Firstly, of course, very specific restrictions on those particular inducements that I talked about. Also, once you're on the self-exclusion register, no contact from any online gambling service. So no emails, no contact, no marketing. So it's all about allowing people to take action to protect themselves. And once you do that, you are free from hearing from gambling services, from them reaching out to you, contacting you, marketing to you, all about helping people to make their own choices about how they conduct their lives, and helping people to deal with problem gambling. On average, a problem gambler spends $21,000 a year. 240,000 people are problem online gamblers. So we need to get on top of this.
It's a heck of a lot, and you know, I come to this always saying that don't mind a dabble on the horses, but yes, as you say, always good to avoid people getting that
Of course,
sort of
people
hole.
need to have choice to how they exercise their lives, of course, but for when people want to exercise the choice not to gamble online, we want to give them the tools to act quickly and to protect themselves.
Social Services Minister Paul Fletcher, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.